Hi, well, welcome everybody. My name is Professor MacDougall. Welcome to Bio 4110 Ecological Methods. Things are a little different this year, obviously, but this is a capstone course for all of you. We're taking the course, and it's an opportunity to get a real research experience. Now, some of you may have considered taking an independent research project with a professor. This is a viable alternative. A little bit different in that it's group-based. You'll be working with 4 other people. But you're looking to achieve 4 basic objectives. And actually, these objectives don't really matter with or without COVID. We're running the course pretty much identically. But the 4 objectives are identifying a question that's of interest to you relating to global environmental change, developing a way of testing that question with some sort of experiment or relying on other experiments that have generated data that you can use. That's number 2. The third is to generate a literature review to understand that question in the current science, using Web of Science and those sorts of things. And then the final thing is to write a research paper on that topic, including an oral presentation. So the interaction in this course, of course, will be a little bit different in that we will be relying on Zoom. We have a Zoom Pro license for the course, which will allow us to do presentations to all of you at once, but also breakout rooms. So I don't know the exact numbers in the course right now, but we're going to have approximately 15 groups of 4. And so each one of the 15 groups will have the opportunity to break out, and I'll go from group to group, helping to identify ideas or troubleshoot whatever idea you may have at whatever stage of the course. So the TA in the course, Ollie Carroll, Oliver, is a PhD student in my lab. He'll also be helping with that. So there's the opportunity to talk to the entire class. There's the opportunity to work with your individual group throughout the course. And again, that's identically how we do it, and, with or without COVID. In short, the course is independent and self-directed. Now, you're doing it within your group, so it's not you individually. You've got your 3 other lab partners, but you collectively are responsible for identifying questions. We'll help with that, and I can list or often list a series of possible things. It could be how drought and nutrient pollution interact to affect plant growth. It could be mechanisms that maintain biodiversity in certain systems, aquatic versus terrestrial. It could be any number of questions like that. We'll help you identify the question, but your group is responsible for leading the charge to decide, what's of interest and how you may go about to test those alternatives. For example, maybe drought tolerance can be influenced by precipitation, the amount of rainfall that's happening. Obviously, that's important. But it can also be influenced by species traits, and some types of plants, for example, may be less drought sensitive than others. So there's 2 broad hypotheses about how climate change and drought may impact plant growth, right? And so typically we use empirical experiments to test those things. There may be the opportunity to do that this term. We're still working on that. The alternative source of information is data from existing studies. And I'll introduce that at the opening of the class. There are now thousands of what we call published data sets on every topic you can imagine. So the goal might be to obtain 1 or a few of those data sets that are relevant to your question and use those data as the basis for all of the work that you do, your analysis, your graphs, and so forth throughout the term. But again, myself and Ollie will help the development of that question, the setup of the experiment, and so forth throughout the course. So we do have 2 skill sets that we ask all of the people in the course to draw upon. Of course, one of them are the courses that you've taken already, the theory on ecology, statistics, whatever it might be. But the second thing is the lab and field experience, Bio 3010. So in that class, you have all been, and it's a prereq for our course, of course, you have worked with developing an experiment that you've taken through to the end with a report. This course is very similar, except it's far more reliant on your independence. The groups are a lot smaller, and there's a lot more room to move, so you can get a much more substantive research experience. So you're relying on the courses you've taken, you're relying on the experience with 3010 or any other lab courses you've taken. Another good one is plant functional ecology. If some of you have taken that, that's also going to be handy in the sorts of projects you're going to look to develop here. But what we do in the course is we try to treat each group or each student, you're kind of an environmental consultant and I'm the client, and I'm wanting a project to be complete. So you have to tackle, you come up with your own question, but you tackle the project all the way through and produce a report. So it's meant to simulate to some degree a research experience, like maybe like a master's thesis might be, or it could be about an environmental consultant if you end up doing something like that, where you're expected to write a report where you're leading the charge, putting the information together. The assessments for the course are based again on those same four categories. In the sense, you'll be assessed on your proposal that you put together. Once you come up with your question, you'll be assessed on the literature review and your final project. Every student will get an opportunity to present on Zoom a 15-minute talk. So a group of four, there'll be four talks throughout the term. Proposal, project update, literature review, and final report. Each of you will take a turn presenting for 15 minutes, so you'll be assessed on that evaluation. The final paper is written as a group, so you'll be assessed on that. But there's also an individual report, a smaller, more concentrated report that each individual has to do separately. Here's the experience that I got out of this. Here's what I think is important. Here are the conclusions that we drew. So that gives an opportunity for each individual to express in their own voice what they learned out of the research project. So it's mostly group-based, but the presentations are individual, and that smaller papers I described is also individual. So there's no textbooks or materials required. One of the questions we talk about pretty quickly with each group is what sort of statistical software are you comfortable with? A lot of students like to use R. If you happen to be in a group where nobody can use R, then we can find an alternative. It's called JUMP. It's a SaaS product. It's you can subscribe to it from the University Computer Services. It's quite affordable. The annual license is $20, something like that. So the big thing is having somebody in the group or multiple people that can do statistical analyses. But other than that, there is no textbook. All the resources you're going to need are online. The library helps us out with this course. We have a staff person that often gives a presentation sometime around mid-October about how to do literature searches. And you may think, well, I know how to do that already. But actually, we have that person give a lecture every single year in our course, and I always learn something new. The amount of materials, resources out there to help generate literature relevant to your question it's much greater than you probably think. So that helps too. So we provide some of those resources, but again, no textbook, nothing else. I will say one thing. There is the possibility of field-based research, outdoor projects. We haven't determined our capacity to do that, but it could be that 5 out of the 15 groups, if they want, can choose to do an outdoor project. We have a staff person, Carol Ann Lacroix, who is involved. She's got an inventory of equipment that can be rented out and used. And so if you need anything like a ruler or you name it, we actually have it. And you just sign it out, borrow it, and bring it back at the end of the day. So I got to admit, when I first was told that this would be an online course, I thought, how am I going to do this? But it very quickly became apparent that we can have the exact same high quality research experience, even though we're, for example, relying on existing data versus collecting it ourselves for the groups that end up using existing data. And I think we can do as dynamic a job of thinking about testing research as we could, as we did last year. So I'm super positive about this. I'm looking forward to with the groups. I think the Zoom is going to allow us to do a lot of face-to-face contact to give the groups a guidance as they work through on their project. So yeah, I think it's going to be a fun term.